Avançamos sem demoras para a quarta conferência plenária, intitulada Wine Tourism and its Economic Impact in the Development of Wine Regions. É um tema que nos é particularmente caro na região demarcada do Douro, o impacto económico do enoturismo no desenvolvimento das regiões vitivinícolas. Vamos ter entre nós como orador o professor Gergely Szolnoki, da Universidade de Geisenheim, que nos traz uma perspectiva importante neste domínio, nos estudos que tem feito e nas diversas obras que tem publicado sobre o comportamento do consumidor, a análise do mercado, a análise sensorial do vinho, dos meios de comunicação no negócio do vinho. O professor Gergely Szolnoki é igualmente perito delegado da Organização Internacional da Vinha e do Vinho e, como disse, tem diversa obra nesta matéria. Não sei se o professor já está conosco. Professor Gergely, are you with us? Yes, you are ready with us.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Alberto, for the introduction. It was in Portuguese, so I haven't got all of the stuff you mentioned, but hopefully you said only positive things. So thank you.
I only said good things about you. Don't worry.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and a warm welcome from Germany. As you already know, Gergely Szolnoki from the Geisenheim University, and the next 40-45 minutes, I'm going to give a presentation on wine tourism and its economic impact. So let's start with the structure. I'm going to touch upon 4 different topics. I'm going to start with a little bit theoretical part. Don't panic, won't give you a lecture, but just very little theoretical part. Then we're going to change and jump to the economic impact, how much money does wine tourism generate in the wine region. And then, of course, because of the circumstances, we can't avoid the C word, which is, of course, COVID. I'm going to talk a little bit about the impact of COVID. And the very last point is actually going to show you some future trends for the trends we're going to face in the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years. Okay? So let's start with the tourism, because wine tourism is a funny thing. Is actually a niche tourism, and the bigger category, of course, is the tourism itself. Now, there is one point of tourism which is called gastronomic tourism, which is a tiny part of the general whole tourism sector. And gastronomic tourism is defined by UNWTO, as you can see here, as an experience linked to food and product and activities while you are traveling. Yeah? Now, even a smaller part of this is wine tourism, which is only focusing on wine at the winery or in the vineyard, tasting room, salad or whatever, when the consumers, the tourists are tasting wine or purchasing wine or whatever. So I think with this one, I could show you that, we're talking really about a niche market in this case, a niche market of the whole tourism sector. So who is a wine tourist, or who are the wine tourists? I'm going back to 2000, and I took the definition by Hall, who said actually a quite simple definition: those who are visiting vineyards, wineries, wine festivals, wine shows, and have a prime motivation on wine, then they could be labeled or defined as wine tourists. Quite simple one. But as you know, there are lots of tourists and a lot of people, they visit wineries and they don't have high involvement, or they even have a high involvement. So you can see here a list of different consumer kinds or types. With this one on the left-hand side, has a lot of wine on their minds, and I'm not talking about that he drink too much, but it means that the involvement is, and the knowledge and the interest in wine is really high. Here's the second one and the third one. They have an average or a below average. And there is one who visited actually a winery, but they don't have involvement at all. And by this definition, we created actually in our study two different wine tourist types. The one is the primary wine tourist, which is actually the same what Hall defined in the year 2000 in his book. This is visiting a winery or a wine show, tasting wines and having lots of involvement in their mind, yeah, on wine. And the other ones, they called secondary wine tourists. They also do or visiting wineries, tasting wine, but the main reason that they visited this winery or tasting wine was not because they are so into wine and so crazy about wine. It was maybe they are a partner of an involved wine person, a friend of an involved wine person. Maybe they just found a short description when they were just hiking or biking or whatever, that here in this place, 200 meters, there is a winery. Actually, by chance, they visited the winery. So we label them as a secondary wine tourist with low involvement. And there is a trick actually, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to focus on secondary and also on primary wine tourists. I'm going to show you the differences, okay? And the differences we found out is based on the quantitative survey we conducted some years ago here in Germany by interviewing more than 4,400 tourists. Believe me, it was a big job and huge job. We concentrated on all of the 13 different wine growing regions in Germany. And what we found actually, we asked all these 4,400, they were not all wine tourists, they were tourists in a wine region. Okay, there's a huge difference, yeah? And we asked them whether they visited wineries or wine festivals. And of course, yeah, what you can see here, 70% or more than 70% stated no, yeah? And the remaining 27% said yes. Yeah, so there is a huge part of tourists in the wine region. They don't visit wineries. This is something potential for the future, let's say. And after that, when we asked this 27% of these wine tourists, they stated that they visited wineries. We asked them how important was wine for their travel motivation. And those who said very important and important, the right-hand side, we labeled them as primary wine tourists. And those who said not important at all or neutral, yeah, we labeled them as secondary wine tourists. And of course, we have huge share of those who are non-wine tourists. Yeah, this is more or less the realistic picture when we are talking about tourists in a wine region. Now, we analyze also the travel motivation. And normally you would say, or you will think, or you might know that, wine is the most important factor for primary wine tourists. This is the case, what you can see here. But interestingly, there are four main factors they influencing very, very significantly all three groups actually when they visit a wine growing region. This is nature, this is relaxation, wine, depending on whether you are a primary, secondary tourist or not a wine tourist, and food. Yeah, and also in case of primary wine tourist, we are talking about a mixture of these four different factors. So this is not only wine, this is not only food, but a nice mixture of nature and relaxation. Yeah, and also in the secondary wine tourist, you can see here, there we have a higher share of nature and landscape, a lower share, of course, of wine and tourism. But with this one, I just wanted to show you that other factors play also an important role, not only wine. So let's concentrate now the economic impact. Actually, we wanted to find out how important are wine tourists for a region, for this rural development. And before I start, just want to tell you some, or I'm going to show you some main facts about wine, about tourism generally. And these numbers I'm showing you, they are before the COVID crisis. Yeah, huge industry. Yeah, in 2019. Yeah, we were talking about $8.8 trillion worldwide and 10% of the global employment. So lots of people are involved in the tourism or touristic sector, and a huge growth rate. And focusing now in Germany, also in Germany, lots of money has been generated by tourism. Almost 300 billion euros. This is actually number one in Europe, believe or not, yeah, or used to be the number one in Europe. Lots of job in Germany is even more than the natural international average. In Germany is 12%. And the main point is actually why Germany is so successful in terms of tourism is actually that this one here, the domestic tourism, is so important. We can say it's over 80%. They are domestic tourists. So the Germans really like exploring, protecting their own regions and country. So now going back to wine tourism, there are several models, there are several publications, not too much, but there are some of them from Australia, Italy, US, Canada, France, and Argentina. They try to figure out this economic importance of wine tourism. And they use different models and methods. They try to evaluate or calculate the number of visitors and also the wine tourism expenditures. So how much money do they spend on different things when they are in the wine region? Unfortunately, as you can see here, there are different models. So we had to develop a new model to see how in Germany the case is. This is the model. This is our approach. This is our model. Actually, we asked these 4,400 tourists in all of the 13 wine growing regions. And we did a kind of extrapolation based on official statistics. Yeah, because what we've done was a moment survey, and we needed an extrapolation for the whole year. Yeah, so we work with official statistics of overnight tourists and day tourists, things like this, and then we combined these results with the expenses of the different consumers, expenses on accommodation, food generally, relaxation, gastronomy, gifts, and on wine. So actually 6 categories. And then combining these 2 things, we received a gross turnover. Yeah, and we calculated this gross turnover both for overnight tourists, day tourists, primary, secondary, non-wine tourists. So lots of different small and bigger categories we calculated. This is not so interesting. I leave the presentation to download. So if you have questions regarding the method, just contact me. I just wanted to show you actually the results. Just to present what we found out. We have 2 categories that I already mentioned. We have the overnight tourist, general tourists in wine growing regions, including also wine tourists and non-wine tourists, and day visitors. Yeah, what you can see here, this is the daily expenses of tourists in the wine regions. Overnight guests, of course, much more because they pay also for the accommodation per day. Yeah, but we have the gastronomy, entertainment, wine, food, and other expenses. While day visitors expenses on average of 70 euros per day. I think more interesting is this one, where we separated the primary, the secondary, and the non-wine tourist, well knowing that they are different. And what you can see here is primary wine tourists. They have a significant higher daily travel expenses than the other tourists. So, and this is not only because of wine. Of course, they spend more money on wine than the other groups because they visiting directly wineries or wine shows or wine festivals. But what you can see here, this is 150. The other one is 120. They are secondary wine tourists. They have also a small part of wine, €8 per person. And they're, of course, non-winery visitors, which is actually the smallest or the less expenses compared to other groups, what we can see here. So what does it mean? It means actually that when we try to categorize these three groups, then we can say that primary wine tourists, they are actually primary tourists, or they are actually the most important tourists for a wine region because they are willing to spend, and they do really spend lots of money, while the other two tourist groups, they are more they are not very spending more money while they are visiting the region. We separated also this tourist, and what you can see here is the number of tourists in million and the number of spendings what they spend in the region for overnight stays and for day visits. And also this one we separated for primary, secondary, and non-wine tourists. And actually the most interesting group for us, because we are talking about wine tourism, is always the primary wine tourist category. And when we add the expenses, the gross spendings of this one and this group, we have approximately 5 million euros. So lots of money for 1 year in all of the 13 wine growing regions in Germany, but still there's a lot of money. And when you put it together and create VAT and gross tourist spending, and the second one, the blue numbers is related to wine tourism, then you can see that approximately in all of these 13 German wine growing regions, yeah, approximately 70,000 people are related somehow to wine tourism. Of course, they are employees in hotels, in bakery, in restaurants, and so on. But we can say that the income equivalent is related to 70,000 working people relies on primary wine tourism, direct and indirectly. So a huge number, lots of money, lots of people, lots of salaries are linked to wine tourism in Germany. This is what we created also for all of the 13 wine growing regions. And here we are talking about general tourist and non-wine tourist. And you can see here, for example, Ahr or Mittelrhein or Mosel, they are certain wine growing regions. We calculated how many visitors per day, per year, and tourist spending and income equivalents. So unfortunately, study like this don't exist from other countries. We just published last year actually the results of this one. Of course, it would be also interesting to compare other regions with the German Rhine regions using the same model. We are working on this. So, and now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the C word, which we can't avoid. In this case, this is COVID, and life has changed. Also, this one has a huge impact on wine tourism, generally on tourism, but also on wine tourism. And lots of losses, lots of creative ideas created due to the COVID pandemic. And I want to show you some of the results. Let's start with let's say, official published forecast by UNWTO. They said last year that hopefully, because of vaccination, because of other things, the tourism sector will be increasing from February, March, and April very quickly. And hopefully, in some months, there are different scenarios. We will reach at least the same level we have had before 2020. As we all know, it was not the case. Yeah. And it was everything was extended until May. And then in May, lots of countries actually opened their doors. Restaurants restrictions been cancelled and slowed down and so on. So there's a kind of development, positive development, but actually we don't know how it will be after the summer holiday, because a lot of people said because of the data variants of COVID, there are lots of black clouds on the sky in terms of future tourism activities. So we will see how it will be in October. But what we can see here, and this is also UNWTO, is to reach the level of what we have had in 2019. And this is written here. We need at least 2 or 4 years, according to the international organization. And this is not very funny. This is not very funny because you see, you saw already how important actually wine tourism is for a rural environment and for the rural regions. And this money, or at least part of this money, is not there. It's not there. We conducted a survey just to find out, an international survey, just to find out how wineries from 5 countries, there were completely different countries like US, Australia, Germany, Hungary, and Romania, what kind of strategies they developed, they applied to survive and to compensate a little bit the losses by COVID-19. And what we found, there are 5 main points. What we found almost in all countries is the following: optimize and exploring the digital platforms. And I'm not only talking about online wine tastings, but also other digital things like selling wine online, which became a huge thing actually in the last 1.5 years. Then using more interesting or more intensively CRM database, suppose related marketing database. Those who use this one and those who had this database of consumers, they had better chance to contact directly consumers, to sell wine, to invite them to online wine tasting, whatever. Yeah. Virtual events, big hit. I'm going to show you some results regarding this topic. Then direct to consumer sales. This was also something, well, maybe it was the phone sales or the mail sales. It was, or it used to be, something special in the last 20, 30 years. But it was not necessary, let's say, because of wine tourism was flourishing and was running quite good until March 2020. And then the people or the producers, they went back to these old strategies like calling consumers, mailing them, and offering online their products. And the other one is also kind of strategy, discounts, free delivery, where you added things just to promote, just to sell more wines directly. Yeah. Of course, with all of these strategies, there was not possible to compensate everything 100%ly what they lost in this time, but at least they tried. And I already mentioned the virtual events. And this one, it's turned out and figure out that this one was very interesting, very a huge demand of this, and some of the wineries, they made a really good business with this one. And we wanted to know more about this virtual events. So therefore, we conducted the survey beginning of this year. Again, an international survey, but not a qualitative, but a quantitative one, where we interviewed more than 1,400 wineries from 42 countries, just to say, okay, how they use, whether they use or not online wine tasting and how they use it. And what you can see here, mainly the European countries participated in this one, but we had also USA, Australia, and other countries. We had also participants up to 100 for this survey. So what we realized when we analyzed the answers of these 1,400 producers, we asked, realized that actually online wine tasting was not something for all of the wineries. 60% said they haven't organized something like this, and only approximately 40% said, okay, yes, we organized something similar in the last year, and it was mainly due to COVID. And we analyzed the reasons, the target group, the profitability. And the profitability is actually one point, one main point. I integrated this part, this presentation, because it's also some kind of contribution to the economic importance in times of a pandemic. And then those who haven't organized something like this, an online event, we ask just the reason and the willingness to start. There are some cross-cultural comparison. Here we have an above average results of the share of online wine tasting in the USA, in Germany, and in Spain. Let's say an average level of online wine tastings in Austria, Portugal as well, and Italy. And we have a below average share of online wine tastings from France. Yeah. We asked, for example, the consumers what was the reason that they organized an online wine tasting like this. And what you can see here, we have, or they had the option of choosing 5 different answers. And then when you see here the results, there is a perfect harmonized and balanced results. Almost all of the categories received approximately 20%. Yeah. And the main reason is that lots of wineries, I would say the majority of the wineries, when they started using online wine tastings and organizing online wine tastings, they didn't know exactly what to do with this, for which reason, and they just organized it, they just offered it and hoped that they can somehow compensate the losses of due to the crisis. So we have marketing values, replacing canceled events, of course, even acquiring new consumers and customers, loyalty, and increase the direct sale, which is also one of the main reasons that you can see here. And actually the interesting fact was that we asked all of these wineries whether they achieved fully or partly at least their goals. And 92% said, yes, they did. Quite interesting because normally you would say, okay, online wine tasting, you could offer 1 or 2 or 3, but not more, but it was not the case. Looks like that it worked really good. So here are some technical dimensions, which you can see here. Number of online wine tastings, 40% of the participants, they organized online wine tastings. But you can see here, lots of them exactly organized only 1 or 2 or 3. wine tastings, but not more. But we have 1/3 of our participants stated that they organize between 6 and 20 different online wine tastings. So huge job, let's say. The length of online wine tasting, what you can see here, the average was mainly between 1 and 1.5 hours. So this was an average, and the number of participants, interestingly and fortunately, it was not only small groups, but we have, for example, 11% said that the average number of participants was more than 40. So huge online wine tastings, not only small ones. And in case of platforms, we're using here also Zoom, and also in the wine industry, when it comes to online wine tastings, Zoom occupy the first place, and the other one like YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and so on, they are a little bit in the background. Yeah, just technical dimensions. Another point is, and here we have huge differences. When we ask the producers, what was the main target group? And for German, for Spain, Spanish, and for US wineries, the main target group was or is still B2C, so actually end consumers. Yeah. We have a mixture of B2C and B2B, so business to business or business to consumer contact, for which group they organize online wine tastings. And this is France. And we have an over average share of B2B online wine tastings, especially in Portugal, interestingly, and in Austria. B2B online wine tastings, you have to just understand the meaning of this. Means that you present your latest harvest, you try to sell wine to retailers, to gastronomy, or whatever. And by doing so, you won't or you don't earn money directly. This is more a long-term story, and it doesn't mean that you get directly money, unlike when you organize something with end consumers, because they normally pay for the packages or what you deliver, the wines and shipping the wines. They order wines hopefully after the presentation, but not the business consumers. Yeah, this is a huge difference. And then we arrived at a topic which is actually the main focus of this presentation: profitability or the economic impact. And we were quite happy when we analyzed these results by seeing that okay, there are 6%. They were not very satisfied with this one. I suppose they organized one online wine tasting and not that was all. And then they closed the door and said, okay, no more online wine tastings. We have approximately 40%. They haven't reached the monetary benefits. I suppose when we analyzed these were mainly wineries. They offer online wine tastings for business partners and business customers. And then we have almost 60%. They said, okay, it was profitable, and they were mainly focused on B2C, so end consumers. And success factors, when we analyze them, we can say that it was communication. The more communication channels the wineries used, the more profitable was actually the online wine tasting. It's something to do with the fact that actually when you organize an online wine tasting, you have to bring people, and you have to motivate people that they participating in this online wine tasting. And the best way is actually using different marketing channels and having lots of contact. As I already mentioned, B2C was the key for direct profitability. I'm not talking about indirect profitability in the future. Length of wine tasting, the longer, the more profitable. and the more people you have had in your group, again, the profitable it was or has been actually the wine tasting. And then the last slide for the online wine tasting session is we asked the question from those who applied online wine tastings in the past. We asked the question whether you would continue this or not. And more than 60% said yes, and another 34% said maybe. But the share of those who said no, it was really small. And then we asked also those, you might remember this was approximately 60% of our participants, they said they didn't organize online wine tastings in the past. We asked them, okay, would you? Okay, the definitive yes, it's quite small, it's approximately 13%, but there is a huge share on a lot of wineries. They said yes, we would consider this. So actually the answer was maybe, depending on the situation, depending on the circumstances, maybe. And I think this is exactly the sign or the proof that online wine tasting is came to stay. They won't disappear very quickly, and I think it will be part of the modern wine tourism in the future. And talking about future and modern wine tourism, this is actually the last part of my presentation. I'm going to show you some future trends. What I believe that will play an important role in the future. And I categorize them in 4 main groups. Let's start with the first one. You will see here all the icons, yeah? And I try to describe, or I will describe what these icons mean or might mean. So the first one is camper. Especially in Europe, there was a huge development and development of using campers, buying campers since last year. And for example, in Germany, when you want to buy a camper, there is a waiting list, and you have to wait some months until you get one, because the demand is so high. And interesting is, for example, that some of the wineries, they adapted this new situation and changed the parking space before or in the winery, and apply this for campers to stay there. And the traditional example is, for example, Mosel. This is one of the prestigious wine growing regions in Germany. And Mosel apply or have been applying this one actually for more than 20 years for tourists from Netherlands and Denmark. They came or coming all the time with campers. And just to stay there, enjoying wines, spend some days directly at the winery. Yeah, of course, with gastronomic offers and so on. The other one is also, this is a bicycle, and it should actually show that the active wine tourism, which means combining sporty activities and wine tourism. In Germany, it works really good. I won't say that that more than 50%, because it's not true, arriving by bicycle at the wineries. This is still approximately 80% by car, but still the share of tourists with bicycle or by bicycle is growing and increasing all the time. Yeah. And the other one, this guy with the ticket in the hand, should show that the tourism generally will be more individual. Lots of experts predicted already that after the crisis, after the Corona crisis, mass tourism will vanish. Well, it won't disappear for sure, but it will lose their importance. And in the individual tourism, to get something special, at least the important, will be increasing. And this is a point where wine tourism can score and get positive points, actually, because individual tourism to see, to taste, to have something special, it could be easily combined with wine. The other dimension, let's say, is local or locality. This is also what we've seen in the last 1.5 years, that if I'm not able to travel to Spain or to Portugal or to Greece or to Italy, said the Germans, yeah, then I'm going to, or at least try to discover my own region, or maybe the neighborhood region, which might be a wine growing region. And this locality or local tourism, still it was quite important also before the tourism, before the Corona crisis, but also this one became more important and gained more importance since the beginning of the COVID crisis. Combining with nature and combining with gastronomy. Also, this one is the part where wine tourism can get getting more important, because when you consider the vineyards, they are outside, and although it's a monoculture, but there's a huge biodiversity. There was nice landscape all the time when there are vineyards, and of course, gastronomy. To the gastronomic tourism belongs also wine tourism. So it's also a nice combination. Digitalization or digital world. Also, this one is not new. I was already talking about online wine tastings, which I think it remains or it will remain more stable for the future. And the second picture, the guy with the virtual reality mask or glasses, is also not anymore the future. The German Wine Institute, and I'm pretty sure also other institutions as well, started already 2018, yeah, 3 years ago, a campaign and a road tour around Germany. I visited bigger cities and the shopping malls of bigger cities, where they combined the the perception of persons. Yeah, they are not wine experts. They would belong to the secondary wine tourists, actually, but they just simply ask people whether you want to try it, and they tried. And then there was a small film or a small movie they were watching and tasted at the same time wine. And this is also what Charles Spence said before, that combining different perceptions and senses. This is an interesting story, and being at home or being in your hometown or city, and then having the possibility to watch a movie about wine growing regions and taste the wine at the same time. This is something special. And then just imagine, and this is the second, the last picture in this row, what I would share with you, shows that actually with this, we can contribute to a very sustainable wine tourism in the future, because when wine tourists are not coming to me, then I have the chance, of course, organizing a tour and not only alone, because it doesn't make sense that only one winery organizes something like this, but maybe more wineries, they have a chance to go directly to the consumers or customers there where they live, yeah, and then organize virtual tasting and virtual reality show with something like this. Of course, it won't replace the wine tourism in person, because it remains the highest level. But still, with these actions and with these movements, we can reach people that would never ever visit our winery. Yeah, just consider this: they are secondary wine tourists. They maybe are a little bit interested in wine, but they would never take the car, never take the train, and go from their hometown or home city to the winery just to buy some bottle of wine and have a chat with the winemaker. They would never do this. So this is kind of extension of the secondary wine tourist. which I think of great importance. And the last one is safety and healthy. The first picture shows here organic trend. I think maybe not right now, but in the near future, I think organic wineries and sustainable wineries with biodiversity and all of this nice nature and so on, they will play a more important role what they used to play in the future, in the past. Sorry. So this is one trend. Also, other one, of course, the sanitary measures because of COVID. And there is one picture also. This is an autonomous car. Yeah, you know, Tesla and also other factories and car makers, they're working on this. And just imagine the effect of autonomous cars, because as I already mentioned, the main vehicle you go from your home or wherever, or your hotel to the winery is mainly still cars. Yeah, but you have to drive the car, and then this is another very good combination: driving and tasting. Yeah, because it is alcohol and your driving license and the car. So this is also an ethical issue, let's say. And the wine tourism industry is really waiting for the day when the first autonomous car will be introduced and will be sold officially, because that would be a great mean or great success actually for winery visitors, that they don't risk their driving license, but just can sit in the car and travel there and travel back safety again. So these were, from my opinion, the most important, the most interesting trends. I hope you could follow this. I'm pretty sure there are more than this one, and some of them, they're not so interesting. Some of them are not so important. That I think we will see in 5-10 years, maybe. At the very end, I want to share with you some recent publications for scientists. The left-hand side, there is a MDPI journal. It's called Sustainability. This is where we started a special issue on sustainable wine and beverage tourism. Then with a friend and with a colleague of mine from Spain, we published a book, and it's called Sustainable and Innovative Wine Tourism. And interestingly, this book, you don't have to buy it, because it's free to download, more than 300 pages. You are very welcome to scan this QR code and get the book for free, both in English and in Spanish as well. And then if you are interested in other in-depth results and findings regarding the online wine tastings study worldwide, then we have also uploaded this one, and you can download by clicking on this QR code. So at the very end, short summary. Yeah. As I said, and don't make a mistake, and don't think so that that wine tourism, because it's so a tiny niche market, it's not so important. It plays a very important role. Maybe not now because of the restrictions, but in the past and hopefully in the future, it will play a very important role. And this is one of the main drivers of rural regions where wine tourism or wine making is popular. Then we could see some great potential for the future, and I think actually the main potential is extending the circle of secondary wine tourists, because there is a certain part of primary wine tourists, which is approximately 10%, if any, of all visitors of our wine growing region. This is not very easy to increase, yeah, the number of this 10% the circle, because it's linked with a higher involvement of people. But with a lower involvement and visiting winery, there could be a chance actually for wineries, for wine festivals, for wine events, and so on. And I think in the future, there will be lots of different measures and lots of different activities for this very special group, secondary wine tourists, which is there are lots of space to grow still there. And regarding the trends, I share with you, there is individuality, there is digitalization, there is sustainability. Actually, when I try to summarize the trends, I would say these three things, they are of importance for the future trends. So thank you very much. Was a great pleasure. And of course, if you have any questions, then I'm happy to answer these.
Thank you very much, Professor Gergely Szolnoki. I don't know if there are some questions in the room for our guest speaker. I must underline that it was quite interesting, your analysis, and especially there is a clear link between wine tourism and wine routes and sustainability, as you referred, and also the books that you have indicate in the end. And that connection and the importance of sustainability is also today very clear by law, by the new Common Agriculture Policy approved with the Portuguese presidency of the Council. I don't know if you would like, we still have 2 or 3 minutes ahead of time. If you would like to give some other details concerning this link between wine tourism and sustainability, economical and social especially. We have 2 minutes left.
Yeah, thank you very much for this interesting question. First of all, yeah, sustainability is not so easy to define. We all know this. And there are different certain points where we will say there is a certain link between wine tourism and sustainability, but we have to find these. When we're talking about the 3 pillars of sustainability, the ecological pillar is quite fulfilled, I would say, with organic winemaking, with reduction of pesticide and herbicide, with biodiversity and so on. I think it's going on the right direction and they are on the right track, yeah, on the nature and so on. The second one, the economic aspect. This is a little bit tricky because it means not only to survive, but also to earn enough money to invest on development, further development for the wineries. So it will be of great importance in the future. And at the end, of course, we have also a kind of social and cultural dimension. And this is quite tricky to find the dimensions we can operate there, because this is also this question of don't drink and wine. This is also a question of mass tourism. Yeah, how the mass tourism develop actually the development or influences the development of a region. Is it positive or is it mainly negative? Yeah, these are questions. Then, of course, the employees, the helpers, they are coming from different other countries for the harvest, the salary, the sponsorship, and lots of things, they are coming together. And I think there we still need another 5, 6, 7, 10 years until a clear picture of sustainable wine tourism can be drawn. And in the meantime, we will have to work on different areas and different parts of these 3 pillars.
Thank you very much, Professor Gergely Szolnoki. It was a pleasure to have you with us, and I hope we can see you soon, one of these days. Thank you. And
thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. E assim terminamos as conferências plenárias e termino aqui a minha tarefa de moderador destas conferências. Passando agora para o ponto seguinte. Muito obrigado a todos.